Welcome to Make It Plain, the Eric, Key, and Cameron Show. On today's show, we will discuss whether the saved will recognize each other in heaven. This is an intriguing study. Stay tuned and study with us. This podcast is dedicated to addressing various topics from a biblical perspective, coupled with practical solutions for daily application. In essence, we want to take the Bible, which is relevant for all that we need in this life and the one to come, 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, and just make it plain. Our contact information for those of you who would like to reach out to us, we love receiving your correspondence. Our email address is makeitplain, hab22@gmail.com. If you'd like to reach out to us and submit questions or comments regarding the show content, we love to address those. We love to even use your questions or your comments to drive our show content. So please send an email to us. We try to answer them all, every one of them. However, it may be a while before we can get to them. It may be a week or two, depending on our schedules. We're also involved in different parts of the state and involved in different works, and so we get to them as soon as we can. But just hold on. We will answer. We will answer your email. We answer every email. And so this episode is actually a viewer request. This one is: will we recognize, or will the saved recognize each other in heaven? And that is a great question. There are questions that are often pondered. These questions, they will plague the mind of the faithful. And they're questions that, we do our very best to try to come to a conclusion, and to make sure that our conclusion always is biblical, right? It's always supported by biblical proof and biblical evidence. But what happens is that the biblical proof and evidence is not, it may be so sparse that it doesn't satisfy that thirst and that longing that we have to truly know everything about. Like, for instance, like when you talk about recognizing one another in heaven, just heaven itself.
Right. Yeah.
Just heaven itself is hard. It's difficult to comprehend. We've made this reference before. So say we now again, trying to describe and to inform the human mind that is finite about something that is infinite, something that exists outside of the realm of this reality. It's almost impossible to do. We use the illustration of an airplane. If somebody shipped us in a time machine back 1,500 years and told us to explain to people who lived 1,500 years ago an airplane, right? They'll never fully come to an understanding of what an airplane is. But we have to use identifiers that are familiar to them so that they can make some kind of connection. And right. That's what the Bible does for us in regarding things in the hereafter, like things dealing with heaven, a sea made of glass, a crystal clear sea, golden streets, the light and the sun and
thrones
and thrones,
right.
and things that we can see here on earth. We can see a throne on earth. We can see streets made of gold. You could make a street made of gold here right on earth. There are waters here on earth that are so clear you can see all the way to the bottom.
Right.
Right. I mean, so those things exist, but not in the glory of heaven. Right. So trying to explain the glory of heaven to the finite mind is just beyond comprehension. And the Bible does a magnificent job of trying to, but not even, Jesus in his humanity can't make you know what heaven is like.
Well, and I think in attempting to describe that, like, for example, Hebrews 11, 10 through 13 with Abraham,
right,
Isaac, Jacob, and Sarah. It simply says they look for a city.
Yeah.
So in a very subtle, simple way, heaven was described as a city.
Right.
we all know what a city is.
Right.
We know it's a place, it's
residents,
inhabitants. But then it also goes on to say, whose builder and maker is God.
Yeah, whose builder and maker is God.
And so, like you said, using those identifying markers to kind of give some type of idea of what it is that's being described. So when you talk about heaven, in that same chapter, Hebrews 11 is an emphasis on faith.
Right.
And when we start talking about heaven and reality of it and recognition, like that's still a topic dealing with faith.
Right.
It's something that we have to believe and accept by faith.
Right.
That it actually exists, who's going to be there, God's going to be there, but we have to accept it by faith, Hebrews 11, verse number 1. So I think that's something that people sometimes miss as well when we talk about heaven, man. Like God gave us just a small portion of information. Right. In regard to the reality and totality of heaven. But whatever he said about it, we have to believe and accept it by faith.
Well, for sure, because faith is the standing under, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so my hope is built on faith, right, which is built on things not seen, but are still evidence. Absolutely. Right. So our evidence is the empty tomb, right? Like that's evidence that heaven is real, right? Right. That provides substance for all that we hope for, and we hope for heaven. Romans chapter 8, verse 24 and 25, Paul said, "For we are saved by hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For what man hope for what a man seeth, why doth he yet hope for? Right. But if we hope for that which we see not, then do we with patience wait for it." Right. So our hope is built on faith, because faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. So we've never seen heaven, right? Mm-hmm. But our faith is the evidence that heaven exists because we have an empty tomb. Mm-hmm. Our faith and our trust is in God and his son, the empty tomb, his resurrection. I mean, so we know heaven is real.
And you think about just kind of in many ways the association between heaven and hope. First Peter 1:3. Yeah. Blessed be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his abundant mercy has guided us again to a lively hope
by the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead.
Colossians 1:5, Colossians 1:23. So the idea of heaven is undergirded and sustained, at least for us, that is something that we hope for, although we've never seen it.
So and these are great points that lend to our position is that, yes, there will be recognition in heaven. Now, we'll go through why that is the case. But we just talked about hope. Can you imagine, like, why would you ever hope? Why? Why would you hope for heaven if when you get there, there's no recognition? Right. How would you recognize Jesus?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And then Hebrews 12 with the cloud of witnesses that that it talks about, like in my opinion, it lends me to believe that we will have that recognition. We'll know, you'll be able to know each other. You'll be able to know certain things. So, and like you said, what will be I'm not going to say, because heaven, we can't put heaven and depressing together because heaven is going to be worth it. Yeah. So I'm careful with my words.
Well, I think we'll deal with that to an extent, Key. Okay. I think I know where you're going.
Well, but then, so let's, if you backtrack just a little bit, and we're talking about, like, let's if you were dealing with somebody who didn't know anything about Christianity, didn't know about hope, anything, if you were trying to introduce to them a reason for them to believe, and you going through the sources, going through the scriptures, stuff like that, ultimately you got to start out with man's relationship with God. Right. You know what I'm saying? You deal with his relationship with God, communion and things of that nature. So why would it be unfathomable that in getting a person to believe in God and eventually Jesus and the plan of salvation like that, and to exclude communion with God? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. So if there is no recognition, then there's really no basis for man to even have a relationship with God even here.
Why?
It makes no sense. Yeah. Because when we talking about dealing with words like redemption, reconciliation, all these words imply fellowship, communion, relationship. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's even here. Right. Which is also the basis for eternity.
Sure. Yeah. And even and Paul when Paul would lump his readers, that those at Thessalonica, that they would, to their end and talk about things that will happen past this life. The implication is that there would be recognition. They would have recognized that this is the grand conclusion to what happened there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so what happened there obviously has to include, well, I say obviously, at least in my mind, because it won't be obvious to everybody. I don't want to speak generically like this is just something everybody should be obvious to everybody. I didn't want to come off that way. But to me, obviously that would include the relationships, right? Because how do I appreciate heaven? How can I truly appreciate heaven? Not having understood everything I had to go through down here to get there.
Absolutely.
Paul was saying in Romans 8:18, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Right. Why would Paul say that? Right.
Or sometimes Paul and other New Testament writers would make a fortiori arguments. Or greater than, less than arguments.
From the less to the greater, or from the grerer to the less. Either,
if this is true, then that has to be.
That has to be greater,
right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, why are those things so important in the sense of reminding Christians who are alive here as they're going through the difficulties, and we talk about the human condition of life, suffering, affliction, and stuff like that, and then like you said, the grand finale be, man, what's there? Like, you have no clue. Like, it's going to be so much better than you could even imagine.
Right. It's unfathomable.
Right.
You just can't, heaven just, to me, I can't imagine it because it has to go beyond anything that I've experienced here.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the picture that is painted for us, no matter if you can, you see so many people do drawings of heaven and they have the streets of gold, like you said, and all these things. But boy, it's kind of like how we say now, you can take a picture of a place, but being there in person, oh man, it's so much more, it's better.
Hey, so like how like the New Testament talk about like especially in the book of Hebrews, like the law was a shadow. So like you ever see like sometimes like people go like to like tropical destination place, Hawaii or whatever, and they say and they may bring you back a postcard, and it says, "Wish you were here."
Wish you were here.
And now, they had the real thing,
right?
But they sent you back a shadow,
right?
A figure,
right?
And so you think about like, man, like, so this is in a sense like the shadow. The salvation that we enjoy here, fellowship and all those things. But it's like, man, can you imagine like just the minute detail that we've given about heaven, being with God, seeing the faithful of the Old Testament, you know what I'm saying? Like,
if we extend, by extension, for 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, which according to his abundant mercy have begotten us again to a life
go down to
resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, that fade not away, reserved in where?
Heaven.
In heaven for you who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed at the last time. So because when I teach eternal life, I teach it in two aspects. I teach it that it is a promise right now.
It is.
But it is God's promise. So that thing guaranteed. Like he's not, his promise, 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9, is not like man. Like his promise, Titus chapter 1, verse 2, God can't lie, in the hopes of eternal life, which God promised before the world began. Right? And
Hebrews 6:18
cannot lie. The anchor of the soul.
That by two immutable
things.
Which God that cannot lie.
Cannot lie.
Right.
Titus 1:2 cannot lie. Hebrews 6:18 cannot lie. So the promise of eternal life is just as sure as if we had it right now.
Absolutely.
But really, it still is a promise. It's still, because it's reserved in heaven. Because you can give it up.
Yeah.
Like you can give it up right now. Now in heaven, you ain't going to be able to give it up.
Right.
But here you can give it up. That is, so when you talk about eternal life, and you extend 1 Peter chapter 1 past what we were talking about earlier, that thing reserved in heaven for you, and you're kept by faith, right? Because you want to fully grasp it. You want to fully experience it, and you just never will here.
And think about
just never will here.
Even in 1 Peter 1, like you said, extending that, when you get to verses 9 through 12, of which things the angels
desire to look
into, the Old Testament prophets desire to look into. So it's just like God was slowly unfolding, deliberately concealing and revealing certain things.
Verse 6 and 7, wherein you greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaven as through manifold temptations, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than the gold that perishes, though it be tried with fire, might be found under praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ.
Man,
heaven is going to be, but man, you know what would negate the glory of heaven? No, nothing. Never mind. Let me take that back.
Yeah, I tell you,
nothing will ever negate the glory of heaven. But man, to not know and recognize what it took to get there, and the relationships and the people who were faithful. And going back to what you said, Key, Hebrews chapter 12, wherefore seeing we are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. Now, the idea is not that they're standing on the edge of heaven, clapping and cheering us on as we run this race, because the race is metaphorical. So the cloud of witnesses, the cloud of witnesses have to be metaphorical. If the race is metaphorical, the cloud of witnesses is metaphorical. What the writer is saying is that we can, now again, context, please don't snatch the Hebrews 12 out of context. You have to leave the book in its context. Think about the Old Testament worthies who all died in faith, because
Hebrews 11
comes before Hebrews 12. So Hebrews 12.
I said those exact words Sunday.
Right.
Those exact words.
You have to keep it in its context.
Right.
The cloud of witnesses, Hebrews chapter 11, is all those who by faith did something. We can read about their life, and it is through the reading of their life and them living by faith, they're cheering us on through our understanding of their life of faith. It gives us the strength and the courage to continue running this metaphorical race.
Because obviously Solomon said the dead know not anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we understand that. But
and by the way, that doesn't mean the dead don't have recognition. It means the dead don't know what's going on earth.
Right. But in Hebrews 11, though, one thing it is said very specifically, these all died in faith.
Verse 13.
Yeah. And so you think about that in context of, like you said, the great cloud of witnesses, and like you said, Hebrews 12, that combination of, man, these people died. Hebrews 11, 13, the following says, not having received the promise, having seen them afar.
And were persuaded.
They were persuaded. Bro.
Embraced them. They were strangers and pilgrims on this earth.
Like they were willing to live in such a way, although they never saw the promises, they were just as persuaded as like they saw them.
As if they had them.
Right.
Man, they never did.
Right.
That's the thing about faith. That's what faith will do.
Man, who would y'all want to see from Hebrews, from the cloud of witnesses of Hebrews 11? Who, if you, or anybody just throughout the Bible, who would you when you get to heaven? Who would you want to see? Who would you talk to first?
Yeah, we say this, and sometimes we kind of like barbershop talk, and we talk,
right, man.
But in reality, man, like I think at least for me, man, Paul, man.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, like
I was trying to think of somebody different.
And maybe how we do our Mount Rushmore. So if I had a Mount Rushmore, I go.
You get 4 Mount Rushmore.
I probably go New Testament, Paul and Peter,
okay.
2 apostles. Old Testament, Solomon, and probably Isaiah. At least for me.
I'm going Abraham first, man. I'm going Abraham to start with him, because I would want to know, man, when you all this upon your shoulder, man, you're gonna be blessed, make a great nation of you, man. What all these things you had to do, then I would definitely have to go Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And New Testament, I'm definitely going Paul. And I want to say, I got to say Paul and Peter. I got to say Paul.
I said New Testament got to be Paul and Peter, man.
Yeah.
Because they just so that kind of the same but different in a lot of ways. What about you, Eric?
Yeah. Old Testament, man, I'm thinking Noah and Moses. Because I want to talk to Noah about the flood, like just what that was like. Moses, I want to talk about the plagues of Egypt and the parting of the Red Sea. Like I want to talk to Moses about that. Like, man, what was that like, man? Like for real, true story, man. Like Noah, just the flood, it captivates me. Like the scientific impossibilities of the flood. Like, impossibility is not the right word because it happened, but just the implications. That's a better word. The scientific implications of the flood, man. Like I want to
that he probably didn't even know at the time.
Yeah, right. And in the New Testament, that Paul, man, Peter's good. Maybe John.
Right.
Maybe John. John was a son of thunder, man, and John wanted to kill the Samaritans, man. Him and James, man, them boys was rough, man. I think just because he was the disciple that Jesus loved, like, don't get it twisted. Like, no. John would have called fire down from Samaria. Then wanted to sit at the right hand of Jesus and the left hand of Jesus. So I like maybe John, but Peter would be I don't know. Two A and B, Peter and John.
Right.
Paul won. Yeah. I won.
At least for me, like with Solomon, man, like just kind of knowing, like, man, this man had divine wisdom from God, and
didn't know
and misused it.
Right.
It's like he got it from God, misused it, wasted some years, and then kind of comes back on the end as like, this is what I should have been doing all along. Yeah. But then also, man, like with Solomon, man, I was like, bro, like this dude was so wise, man. The Queen of Sheba, came from the South.
Yeah.
And she said, man, your servants are even blessed,
right,
to hear you speak every day.
Right.
And that's why, man, it is so amazing to me, man. Like when Rehoboam got ready to take the throne, this joker went and got his peers.
He got his friends.
Instead of asking his father's servants who heard his father speak, and look how that turned out.
Right. And I say about Ecclesiastes, I said that book ends as appropriate as any book could ever end.
Right.
Like the conclusion of Ecclesiastes is just perfect. Right. I mean, perfect.
Yeah. Let us hit the conclusion of the whole matter.
I mean, man, it's you read Ecclesiastes, man, it's that's a book of books. Yeah. Right there. Let's look at some Old Testament phrases. So let's jump into recognition, man. We got on our, we got on our what ifs. What we were like, that's pretty cool. But let's look at some Old Testament phrases. So I want to go to Genesis 25, 8 and 9. In the Old Testament, we have implication and indication that there is, or at least the Old Testament characters believe that there was going to be recognition. In Genesis chapter 25, verses 8 and 9, notice this. Then Abraham gave up the ghost and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. And his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, which is before Mamre. Now, if you remember that Abraham's folk died in the Ur of Chaldees.
Right.
They died in the Ur of Chaldees. So it couldn't mean that he was gathered to the location, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. So when it says he was gathered to his people, it can't mean that he was buried in the Ur of Chaldees.
With his kinfolk.
Right. Where his kinfolk, well, he was buried in Machpelah. Uh-huh. Right. So that's a phrase, gathered to his people. Notice another phrase, gathered unto his people. Let's go to Genesis 25, 17. So we've got gathered to his people, gathered unto his people. Cam, you want to read verse 17 for me?
Same chapter?
Yep.
Okay. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people.
Unto his people. Key, will you get chapter 35, verse 29, and I'll get 49, 33. You're going to get 35, 29, Key. 35, 29.
So Isaac breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him.
Yep. So he was gathered unto his people. King James will render it unto his people, but gathered to his people. Chapter 49, verse 33. That's known as Jacob. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into his bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people. Cam, would you get Numbers 20, 24 through 26? Key, would you get Deuteronomy 32:50? So Cameron, Numbers 20, 24 through 26.
Got to be the death of Aaron.
Key, Deuteronomy 32:50.
Numbers 20, 24.
Through 26.
Okay. Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because ye rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up unto Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments, and put them upon Eleazar his son. And Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, and shall die there. And Moses did as the Lord commanded, and they went up into Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation.
All right. So that's Aaron. Deuteronomy 32:50. Key.
And die on the mountain which you ascended, and be gathered to your people, just as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people.
Now, where was Moses buried?
We don't know.
We don't know. But he was gathered unto his people. Now, notice what Jacob said. This is the last. We notice the King James. And what I did is I split this up based on because I use King James version. So I split this up by the three phrases based on the King James: gathered to his people, gathered unto his people. And then I found one more: gathered unto my people. So in Genesis 49:29, this is Jacob, and he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in this field of Ephraim the Hittite. So now, though he does address the location, he said gathered to my people. But I want you to notice this: not all his people were buried there.
At that time, what two people? What was Sarah? Sarah wasn't buried in Machpelah. Who else was?
Yeah,
Sarah was buried in Machpelah,
and Abraham. Yeah,
and then Jacob. So
but he said Garrett, but not all his people were buried there. Right. So even though he does address the location,
that was 49.
49:29. Although he addressed the location, he didn't. Not all his people were gathered there.
Okay, he says in Genesis 49:29, and he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people.
My people.
Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite.
Right.
Still my people.
Still my people, my fathers, but not all your fathers were buried there. Right. Because you only have one father. So when you say fathers, who are you talking about?
Right. Got to be the
right. That's got to be your lineage, your generation.
Yeah. Which they, if you go in Jacob, Isaac, Abraham, they all make that statement.
Right. Yeah. They all made that statement. Right. And then if you go above them, they were buried in the Ur Chaldees. Right. Again, because if Abraham is gathered unto his people, he was buried in Machpelah. Right. So those are three phrases right there that show us, or at least that indicate from the Old Testament, that there is a gathering beyond here. Yeah. Or yes, there's a gathering beyond here that implies recognition. All right. So let's look at some objections again. Some say that these passages just again simply mean to be buried in the same location as family. But again, I think Abraham and Moses, they cause us to reconsider. You know, we made mention of this, but I actually want to place scripture on it now. Genesis chapter 11, verse 28. We talked about where Abraham was buried, but Abraham was gathered unto his people, because who was buried in the cave in Machpelah before Abraham?
Well, the only thing we know about was the sons of who was that? The sons of
Zor. Was it Zor?
It was Genesis 23. The sons of sons of Heth. They owned it.
Exactly. That's right. But they weren't his people.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Before Abraham, I'm talking about Abraham's people.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was buried there? Abraham was the first. But then notice Deuteronomy 11:28. Deuteronomy 11:28. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in the Ur of the Chaldees. So Abraham, though he was gathered to his people, it wasn't in the Ur of Chaldees. Yeah, that's where his people were buried. So we can't. So because somebody who would say, well, these passages simply mean that he was buried in a location. Well, Abraham kills that
You
argument.
said Deuteronomy 11?
Genesis 11.
Oh, Genesis.
Genesis 11:28. Genesis 11:28. That's where his people were buried in the Ur of the Chaldees.
Right.
So that's Abraham. But Moses, we know that Moses was gathering to his people. But then we ask the question, well, where was Moses? Where was Moses buried when we get to
But Jude.
Yes.
Deuteronomy.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 34:6.
Right.
I want to go to Deuteronomy 34:6 real quick. Notice this. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab over against Beth Peor, but no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. So we cannot say there's no way Moses can be buried with his people. We know where his people were buried. But Jehovah revealed that no man know where Moses buried.
Right.
It's interesting that Moses wrote Deuteronomy. He wrote that before he died. That nobody know where he would be buried.
By inspiration.
By inspiration. Jehovah revealed that to him. What about David? Look at 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23. Grab that for us, Key, if you don't mind. 2 Samuel 12:23. Notice this. So Moses and Abraham, they killed the idea that simply meant it did.
Right, location.
It did mean location in Jacob's instant,
Right.
but not in Abraham's and Moses's.
Right.
You said 23.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it had to be a deeper meaning.
It had to.
Right.
Had to be a deeper meaning. Because it can mean location, but we've seen instances where it didn't mean location. So it had to be a deeper meaning. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23 for us, Key.
But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me.
Where was David going?
Yeah.
David was going somewhere.
Yeah.
Where's the location? Was David going to be buried in the location of his child? And that simply meant that he was going to, how would he go to him, but he wouldn't come to him? Well, if he's buried in the same location, they'll be together.
Right.
So there has to be a deeper meaning. Does that mean that David says, I'm going to go into death and he will not come back into life? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, that can mean that.
Right.
But when he says he will not come to me, if it's simply location, that if David is buried in the same location as the child, the illegitimate child that he has because of his sin with Bathsheba, then they're going to be in the same location. But David said, no, I'm going to him. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to go to where he is.
So he's going to be able to recognize him. So he know.
Exactly.
Right.
The implication, he's going to recognize that he's in the place where that child
Right.
is. There has to be recognition. How would David know he's going to his child?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if it was another baby?
Right.
Yeah.
David would know. No, that's not my baby.
Right.
That's not my child. That's my child. So David would know. So there is an implication of a recognition in the Old Testament text, in the Old Testament characters. So let's look at some New Testament texts. Let's look at New Testament. Recognition and remembrance, to me, now you guys might know more than these. To me, in the New Testament, now I'm not saying that the implication is not there or that the hint is not there. What I'm saying is that there are three primary texts to me that illustrate recognition and remembrance in the hereafter. The first one is a statement that Jesus made in Matthew chapter 8, verse 10, 11. If we can go over there, Cam, if you don't mind getting that for us. Matthew chapter 8, for our viewing audience, Matthew chapter 8, verse 10 and 11.
Right.
This is a statement that the Lord himself made.
Matthew 8,
verses 10 and 11.
verse 10. When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to them that followed, verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven.
Now, if those who came from the east and the west, if there was no way that they would know that they were sitting down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob,
What importance?
what is the benefit?
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's Jesus' own statement.
Mhm.
Jesus identified 3 people and said, you're going to sit with these 3 people. Well, if we don't have recognition in heaven, why say that?
Well,
What's the
and then-
benefit of saying that?
And then I don't know if out of your 3 New Testament statements, but the same people are used in Matthew 22.
Let's go there.
To
I didn't.
okay, but the same 3 people, because just using what you just did in the Old Testament,
Mm-hmm.
and then what Jesus just said here in Matthew 8, Jesus makes a point in Matthew 22. Matthew 22, when they asked the question, verse number 29,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus answered and said unto them, ye do err, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of God. For in the resurrection, hereafter,
Right.
they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. But as touching the resurrection of the dead, have ye not read that which was spoken unto you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Excellent passage. But you know what I just saw? Verse number 30. Verse number 30. Notice this. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but as are the angels of God in heaven. Question. Do angels recognize each other?
Absolutely.
I just saw that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As a
Because,
matter of fact, we have 2 angels named.
yes.
Yep.
Gabriel and Michael.
Gabriel and Michael.
Right.
Why would they have names if they can't be recognized?
And just to kind of piggyback on that, Daniel 9, Gabriel's name is mentioned.
I know. Yeah.
Then Luke 1,
Yeah.
Gabriel's is mentioned again.
Right.
And we talking about how many years would that be?
Yeah. Yeah,
Probably
that's-
about 800 years.
So
From Daniel.
So Isaiah
Was about 700. Maybe a little
Yeah.
close to 800 years.
So if Isaiah is about 700 and Isaiah is 100 years before Babylon,
Yeah.
So you're looking at about
Yeah. Okay.
about 500-600 years.
Yeah. And Gabriel is still recognize Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
But I just, because I was following your line of thinking
Yeah.
and showing the patriarchs.
right.
Then when you in Matthew 8, I was like, well, that's the point Jesus makes.
Right.
Because think about it, he says in verse number 32, I'm the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and
They're
the God
living.
of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And in living,
You recognize.
you recognize.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good point. I gotta note that one down. Now I didn't have that one in my
But I was just thinking about the patriarchs.
Yeah.
And then and Luke 16.
because I've taught that, but not in that context. I've
Right,
taught
right.
that we live on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that living has to, like, what is living? What does living encompass? Oh, it encompasses recognition. It encompasses you having knowledge.
And the only thing I was
thinking.
doing was just following the patriarchs.
Right.
Because what you were doing in the Old Testament. But then notice again, God says, I'm the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. Who did he say that to originally?
That's a good one.
Exodus 3.
That is a good one. Moses.
Moses.
That's a good one.
And so just like I said, just following the patriarchs, because I think ultimately in Matthew 8, that's the whole line of thinking with Jesus. Like,
Right.
because the Jews would know Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Right. Of course.
And that's why he used them.
right.
And then like even Luke 16.
Yep.
It was like, that's crazy when you think about it from that.
Yeah, and I'm going to Luke 16.
Yeah.
That's great points. I got to remember this. This might be a sermon. This is going to be a sermon, Keith.
Hey, I ain't mad at that.
This is going to be a sermon. Recognition of heaven. We all going to preach that one. That's a good one.
I just like,
I've never-
I like just tracing the patriarchs
Yeah.
from that phrase,
Yeah.
gathered into his place.
I've never preached a sermon on recognition in heaven. Preached a sermon on heaven, but I've never preached a sermon on
Man,
where we recognize one another there.
So in our we do a devotion on Thursday with the men of the congregation.
Mhm.
One of the brothers preached a couple weeks ago. Heaven, man, he had a literature. It was real good. He said, heaven is real, is reachable, and is rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that's real good.
Yeah.
Like and it's practical. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, but as a believer, that's what you kind of need to start thinking about. Like, yeah, we preach about Jesus' salvation, man, but why? What for? Because
Mhm.
ultimately, when it's all said and done, we always say at the end of the day,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, heaven is the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Heaven is a promised place for prepared people.
And if you look at 1 Peter, I say heaven is a reserved place for redeemed people.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's good.
I love it.
Yeah.
1 Peter 1.
It is. We just went through that, Ted.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Talking about hope and what heaven does for our hope. So the Mount of Transfiguration.
Yes, sir.
So Cam, if you'll get, I want to look at all three accounts.
Okay.
So Cam, if you'll get Matthew 17, 1 through 5, I'll get Mark 9, 1 through 8. Key, if you'll get Luke 9, 28 through 35. And so we'll each look at the gospel accounts, each of them dealing with the Mount of Transfiguration. So Cam, you got Matthew 17, 1 through 5.
And after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringing them up into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him.
Now let's look at Mark's account, and then we'll look at Luke's, and then we'll give commentary on it. Mark chapter 9, verses 1 through 8. And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that there be some of them that stand here which shall not taste of death till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power. And after 6 days, Jesus taketh with him Peter and James and John, and leave them up into a high mountain apart by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. And his raiment became shining, exceeding white as snow, so as no fuller on earth can white them. And there appeared unto them Elias and Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And Peter answered and said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias. For he wist not what to say, for they were sore afraid. And there was a cloud that overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear him. And suddenly, when they had looked around about, they saw no man anymore, save Jesus only with themselves. And so let's look at Luke's account.
Now it came to pass about 8 days after these sayings, that he took Peter, John, and James and went up on the mountain to pray. As he prayed, the appearance of his face was altered, and his robe became white and glistening. And behold, 2 men talked with him, who were Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his decease, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. But Peter and those with him were heavy with sleep, and when they were fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. Then it happened as they were parting from him, and Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. While he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were fearful as they entered the cloud, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear him.
So you know what's interesting about Luke's account,
Right.
Is Luke tells us what they were talking about.
Right.
Like in Matthew and Mark, we don't know, but Luke's account, like, man, they were telling Jesus, man, you gonna die, man. And then like they were telling Jesus about his death in verse number 31, who appeared in glory and spake of his decease, which he should accomplish at Jerusalem. So they talked about this with him. But the question always is, if Peter, James, and John had never seen Moses and Elijah, how they know that was them? There's a couple of explanations. Number one, they could have heard Jesus say their names.
Right.
They could have heard Jesus say their names. But here's what I want to convey. They were still 2 people that were there with Jesus who were identifiable, who were recognizable. Like, you know, Peter, James, and John, they didn't fight the fact that was Moses and Elijah. They didn't fight it. You know what I'm saying? They somehow, some way, they were recognized in the hereafter. They had been dead and gone for centuries.
And not only that, it was so recognizable. Peter said, let me build
3 tabernacles.
One for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for Jesus. Like if there was any doubt,
right?
I think there would have been some pause, some apprehension on Peter's part. Like, is this really Moses?
Right.
Is this really?
Or if it were simply a dream or a vision,
right,
or some kind of aberration, or why would he think to build 3 tabernacles?
Right.
Why would he think to build 3 tents? Hey, they and by the way, Peter's not talking about building an Old Testament tabernacle, where tabernacle simply means tent, and so he probably want to build somewhere for them to lay to rest.
And then
you had like literally 2 men were there.
And then if you think about Luke's account, verse 31 showing us what they were discussing, that's consistent with what they wrote and what they prophesied about. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Moses, Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 18.
Yep.
Elijah, writing about and speaking about Jesus prophetically. So it's like, that's not far-fetched.
No.
That here they are, they spoke about him, they wrote about him, and now, hey man, we got to talk to him about it. He got to go through with this.
Right.
So that's amazing.
And they're meeting him. That's interesting too. Moses and Elijah are meeting Jesus. And what's so interesting is that Moses represents the law, Elijah represents the prophets. Right. Jesus is greater than both.
Right.
Basically, it's the entire Old Testament.
Absolutely.
Is what Peter just saw.
Because in Matthew 5:17,
I like how you just said that, for them to get to see the end of what they were looking for, they get a chance to see.
Right.
Yeah.
They get a chance to see what it's Christ.
Yeah. They get to see Jesus.
Man.
So while the argument or the objection might be, well, how did they recognize? Well, that's that
was actually it was really understood.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
at least from their perspective, it was understood that was Moses and Elijah.
Right. And now it could have happened that in the conversation, in the midst, Jesus might have said their names.
True.
Right. That doesn't negate the fact that they were men who were in the afterlife, who were recognizable and identifiable.
Yeah.
Like, it does not negate those facts.
Right.
Like, however they came to know that they were those two men, that has no bearing on the fact that there is recognition there in that passage.
Well,
There's clearly recognition in that passage.
It don't change it.
It don't change it. Don't change it. And here's one of my favorite ones, Lazarus. Like, I mean, there's so much chock full in Lazarus. We John 6, I mean, excuse me, Luke 16. Luke 16, man, this is the prototype. I mean, this is Luke. Now, listen, and let us say this right off the cusp. Whether or not this is a parable does not change the truth that it teaches. If we can convey anything to our viewing audience about, now, all 3 of us may differ about whether or not, I don't think it's a parable.
I don't think it's a parable.
I don't think it's a parable. I think it's a real story. However, even if it is, I'll concede it. I'll concede if you say this is a parable. I'll say, okay. You won't receive any argument from me.
But it doesn't take away. So if it's a parable, whatever principles are embedded therein,
it's applicable.
It being a parable does not take away from.
Because that's the next question I'm asking.
Right.
Okay, if I concede that it's a parable, and I'll concede it just for the sake of this conversation. I believe it's a true story. But let's say it's a parable. What changes?
Not a thing.
And other parts of the parable are consistent with other teachings that Jesus taught.
Right. There's no part of the parable
right.
where you would be like, oh, this means something else.
This is symbolic, or this didn't happen. No. And actually, as we read it, I think you'll be more convinced that it's not a parable.
I mean, I'm convinced it's not a parable. Yeah. But listen, I will concede the fact. I'll concede the position that it could be a parable. I'm convinced it's a true story. But again, my next question is going to be, but what does that change?
Right.
It doesn't change anything. I'm telling you that this story is so vivid and so detailed. It almost can't be a parable, but you know,
too believable.
It's too detailed. It's just too straightforward. It's too matter of fact.
Right.
To in my mind to be a parable. But let's look at it. Luke 16, verse 19 through 31. Verse number 19. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried out and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy goodness, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. Then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou wouldest send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. Abraham said unto him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, Nay, Father Abraham, but if one were sent unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto them, If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. And so when you look at what happens in Lazarus, there's recognition all over this story.
Absolutely.
Like there's recognition. First of all, you recognize Abraham. First of all, and second of all, Lazarus is recognized. Third of all, the rich man is recognized. Number next, the brothers are recognized, because if you are to send them, you're gonna have to describe what your brothers look like.
Absolutely.
And Lazarus is gonna have to remember that, and then he's gonna have to find the guys that meet that identification. There is recognition all over this text. Now, one of the objections is going to be, the rich man, you'll have memories and thoughts and recognition in hell. That's one of the torments of hell, but not in heaven. You notice that Lazarus didn't recognize nothing. It was the rich man doing all the talking, and him and Abraham, but that still doesn't negate the fact that there's recognition in the hereafter.
Right.
And I would never concede that point.
Well,
but even if I did,
but then if you're trying to, lack of a better word, if you're trying to indict Lazarus was with Abraham,
right?
And Abraham recognized him.
That's a great point.
So
great point.
And one point I always bring out with this is Abraham said it twice. They have Moses and the prophets. How did Abraham know that when Moses came after him?
That is a great,
that's just amazing when you think about that, man. Like, how did he know that? When, like you said, back in Genesis 25, when Abraham died, and the Jewish nation keep being perpetuated, like that's the law and the prophets. Yeah,
it had to be 500 years before the law would give. Because think about it, 400 years,
right?
The Amorites,
right?
The iniquity of the Amorites wouldn't get full,
right?
So there's at least
400, right?
At least 400 years, because Abraham was told that his children are going into captivity
for 400 years into the iniquity of the Amorites, and I think it was 1 Kings
430.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
they would come out after 430. New Testament, Paul would say that. Remember, right. Acts chapter
Galatians.
Yeah. But wasn't it in Acts too? Did Paul say in Acts? Did he give a time frame in Acts?
Acts 15,
16, 16.
Is it 16? Oh man, my mind is churning.
You talking about the Jerusalem Council?
Yeah, when Paul was in the synagogue in Acts 16, I think it was. Cam, I'm probably wrong. Cam is the resident professional on the Book of Acts. I think he's memorized the entire book. I'm probably, Cam, if you don't remember it, then I'm probably wrong because you.
But I know
you've memorized.
You're talking about the 400 years.
Yeah,
but he did mention in Galatians though.
Yeah, I'm almost positive it's in Acts too. I'm almost very sure it's in the Book of Acts. But we can find it later. It may be 400.
Yeah, but we'll give a take. Right?
Yeah. But anyway, but 430 years. So you think 430, and then you think they got to go through the wilderness for another 40
to 470.
You know what I'm saying? So you're about 470.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you got to think 30 years, the Levitical priesthood and the law is given on the mountain, you know? So So about 500 years, man.
Right.
From Abraham to Moses, or the law and the prophets.
Yeah.
He knew that something happened 500 years later.
Right.
That is a great.
And I always think about that because he said it twice, because he was trying to convince him, like, hey, you just go back and somebody from the dead, hey, you know, they'll listen. No, they got scripture.
They got they got it from the dead.
Right.
He got the dead.
Right.
In the law and the prophets.
Absolutely.
The people who wrote the law and the prophets are dead.
Absolutely.
Because Abel's still speaking.
Yep.
Then what the Hebrew writer said.
Yep.
Abel's still speaking. Yeah, the dead are still talking. Yeah. So let's look at some objections real quick. How can one be happy knowing that some of their loved ones aren't there? Well, the simple answer is this. We're happy. We still achieve happiness here on earth, and we know some of our loved ones have died in sin and in error and absent from the Lord. Matthew chapter 7, verse 21 through 23.
Even Paul recognized Romans 9 and Romans 10 that his brethren, the Jewish nation, they were cursed. They were separated from God. And that's here.
So the quick answer is, well, we achieve some aspects of happiness here, even though we know some loved ones will be in condemnation. Matthew 7, 21 through 23, not everyone's going to heaven. So why would that change in heaven? Revelation 21:4, God is going to wipe away the tears from every eye.
And that's almost a mute point, really.
Yeah, it is. But it is an objection.
Right.
But God is able. Genesis 18:14. Right? Is anything too hard for the Lord?
Right.
No. There's no marriage in heaven. Right. So recognition of family, like my wife won't be my wife in heaven. So recognition doesn't exist. Well, again, remember Matthew 22:30. Just because the earthly relationship is dissolved doesn't mean there won't be recognition. So that's apples and oranges. You're not arguing the point.
And then
Matthew 22:30.
And then not Matthew 19. There'll be some eunuchs. Not everybody's gonna get married.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
Oh yeah.
And I think if you look at Matthew 22, I think we looked at it real quickly. I think Cam, you brought it out. I think you brought it out already. About Moses.
30.
You have 31 and 32.
Okay. But as touching the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken unto you by God, saying, I'm the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob?
We already addressed that. We already addressed it. Yeah. Just our position again, as we conclude, there will be recognition in heaven. It just makes sense and it lends to our hope. Fellas, that's season 4.
Wow.
Season 4 has concluded with this lesson, this episode. It's been a pleasure. It's been good. We've enjoyed every minute of it and looking forward to season 5. We'll start hopefully shooting that pretty soon, but we appreciate you guys, our viewing audience. Thank you for giving us someone to talk with and talk to as we engage these lessons and these episodes. If you'd like to contact us, make it plain, hab22@gmail.com. Please reach out to us. Give us your comments. Tell us what you love. Tell us what you hate. Just say hello. Give us something to talk about. We appreciate all of it. And as we conclude this season 4, may God bless you and keep you as you seek to conform your will to His.